What's up, internet? Today we have another Kameo counter guide, and today we're talking all about Sareena. So it's been a while since I did this. I only did one, and that was how to counter Sub-Zero. But today we are looking at Sareena, and Sareena, she's good. She's not nearly as good as people make her out to be. I don't find her that oppressive or miserable to play against. I find Kameos like Chameleon way more oppressive and way more annoying. And I actually like that Sareena is a solid Kameo and a base roster one at that, so this way you don't have to, you don't really have to buy a Kameo to have a good one. Sareena is a very solid one that you can spend a lot of time with. She's good for beginners, and she's good for if you're not a beginner. She just has a lot of cool stuff you can do. So without further ado, let's talk about how to counter her, starting with her back assist, which is Kia's Blades. This is probably the move a lot of people hate. It's this quadruple hitting, full screen combo extender. It has really good scaling, and it gives your opponent a lot of screen presence wherever you are. And for a lot of people, it feels like there's just nothing you can do against this, right? You can try jumping, but in certain scenarios, she can actually catch you jumping with the blades, right? On their way back or something like that. Mainly if you're new, this move can feel very strong and oppressive, but I'm actually going to tell you it's not that big of a deal. And the first piece of advice that I need to give you guys is that you need to treat the Kameos like a variation system from like MKX or MK11. They transform the characters in a way where you have to play differently. Sareena, for example, she gives every character some very good projectiles. For example, this forward assist is the fastest projectile in the game. It's on par with Sector's straight missile. So just in general, when you're playing against certain Kameos, you have to play a different way. You can't just consider, oh, they're playing Sub-Zero, I don't need to respect any projectiles or be aware of these things, because all he can do is ice ball me, right? Yeah, Sub-Zero can only really throw an ice ball at you, but Sareena, she can throw this quadruple hitting projectile and he'll get a full combo off of that. She can do this projectile as well to just zone you out and give your opponent much better space control. So just in general, depending on the Kameo your opponent is using, you have to play a different way. So for Sareena, if you absolutely hate these projectiles, you need to treat your opponent like they're a true zoner, like how you'd play against, Quan Chi or Sector. Ducking is honestly one of the best things you can do against someone that's using Sareena when you're in the neutral, especially at this distance. So that's my first piece of advice. I know it's probably bland or not what you want to hear, but now let's actually get into specific counterplay for the Kia's Blades. So Kia's Blades, now specifically if you stand block this, it jails. You cannot immediately start ducking it, especially at full screen, right? However, you can hold block, and at the moment your character crouches, so hold down while you block this move. The moment your character begins crouching, like so, they're in a full crouch, not they've started the animation to crouch, but they're in a full crouch like that, then let go of block, the last hit won't hit you. Just like so. Obviously that's not a huge game-changing counterplay, right? Because you're still taking 3 hits of chip damage that will do about, 3%. Now this is why in particular you want to duck, especially if someone is just throwing this move out willy-nilly during the neutral. Because if you crouch and you block, not even you duck the entire thing, right? Because these are all highs. But specifically, if you're crouch blocking, only the first hit is what you have to block. Every single hit after that, you can just let go of block. Again, this is going to avoid a lot of chip damage for you. And in certain scenarios, some characters can actually get under this and move forward. Sub-Zero, for example, he can slide. Havoc can do his back forward 2 and roll under them. So there are characters that can beat this out in a more meaningful way, but just in general, crouching is a very strong and efficient thing to do against Sareena Kameo because you won't have to respect these projectiles as much. So that's her Kia's Blades in the neutral. And the other thing I want you guys to know about Kia's Blades is that they have quite a long cooldown, as you can see right there, compared to this single hit projectile, which recovers much faster. But let's talk about the other use of Kia's blades, which is that people use it to jail on block. Now this has 26 frames of startup, right? So most strings aren't going to be able to jail into this. Most strings, they don't have a ton of cancel advantage, you know. They'll have like 16 frames, but like Quan Chi, he has 22 frames, right? And in the case of Sub-Zero, this is something that won't happen, but I just want to show you a button that has a lot of cancel advantage. His stand 3 on block has 27 frames of cancel advantage, which is more than enough for this to jail if you were to try and duck them while he special canceled into them. As you can see right here, I'm holding down and I'm ducking after he's doing the stand 3, but it's jailing, which means that you cannot duck that, you have to block. However, same deal as blocking it while crouching at full screen, right? Only the first hit has the 26 frame startup. Everything past that, you can duck. Just like so. So, after this initial hit on block, just let go of block and start ducking. And from here, you're probably wondering, oh, well, you're just sitting there blocking and your opponent is now active again. They're just going to sweep you or hit you with a low. Well, you can prevent any plus frames from occurring for both sides. This is one of the more solid things you can do against this move on block if someone's jailing into it. You can always down 4 people. However, you don't want to down 4 immediately, because if you down 4 too fast, then you still have to respect the blades as they come back, because if you down 4 as soon as possible, whoops, here we go. If you down 4 as soon as possible and you get up and you try to do something, the blades are still going to hit you, so your opponent is actually getting plus frames from this, unless they get hit by a second down 4, but most people are just going to block that, and now you're minus, so they're going to go ahead and take another turn. And in some cases, someone who's really smart, they are going to do a jump in, because if you do this super fast, right, they actually get a safe jump because of the last glaive that comes in, meaning you cannot up block them, so they're going to get plus frames no matter what. So I'm going to tell you right now that look at Sareena's front leg. When she starts to move her front leg here, her right leg, that's when you want to punish with a down 4. You can see right there, because you can start dashing before your down 4 animation ends, and as you can see, no one has plus frames here. You can reset the neutral if you do a back dash, or you can forward dash afterwards, but you're not plus or minus, and neither is your opponent. So you're effectively resetting the neutral from this point, and you're just going to have to get in on each other again. But you're at a much better distance compared to your opponent, and on top of that, you've shut down their Kameo. So if you do land a hit and you combo your opponent, they can't use a breaker. They also can't use Sareena Kameo to extend combos. So when someone is jailing into this move, you want to time your punish right when Sareena starts moving again, because that's going to delay it long enough to where no one gets plus frames, and you reset the neutral. And you want to duck after the first hit, because it's only the first hit that jails. The second hit does not jail, nor does the third and fourth hit. Now there is one more thing you can do in this particular scenario, and it's a little dependent on how far you are from your opponent. Some characters like Quan Chi, for example, his 214 pushes you really far away, but you should be able to still do this. So the final option that I want to show you guys is that you can do the down 2 jump cancel, because these are highs, meaning you're punishing a high with a down 2. If you press up and enhance, you can get a hit of 2 hits of armor, and you get a pretty nasty combo on your opponent. As you can see right there, you're probably saying, oh, you only did 21 damage, or 213. Actually, I did more than that, because the initial down 2 is not counted towards the combo, and you're hitting both the main character and the Kameo. So you're shutting down the Kameo, and you're hitting your opponent. So that turns this into an unbreakable combo. You're getting extra damage because you hit the Kameo, and it actually negates Sareena's third hit of Kia's blades, as you can see here. So even if you don't go for the jump cancel, you can negate 1 hit of Kia's blades. You can see I only get hit once. No one has any plus frames here, no one has any advantage. You're basically both back at mid-screen, so this is doing the same thing that timing your down 4 is doing, but you're getting a little more damage. However, you are trading a tiny bit of damage, only about 3%. But I know In some scenarios, you only have 3 or 4% health left, so you can die for doing that. And the same goes for the armored hit here, because that hit of armor will negate just a tiny bit of damage, but not as much as you'd probably want it to. The armor doesn't make it so all damage is negated. It's only about 2% that's negated. But that is another option you have against someone who's jailing with Kia's blades. However, one more tip I have with this down 2 jump cancel is that you want to time it the same way that you time the down 4, because you can actually jump cancel too early to where you'll lose armor on the way up and your opponent is still gonna, get plus frames, and the whole point is to not give them any plus frames, right? So that is something to be aware of. As soon as Sareena's front leg starts to move a bit, you go ahead and you go for the down 2. Just like this. Now, actually, there is one final option you can do against Kia's blades when someone is jailing it on block. So after you block the first 2 hits, you can actually use Kameo reversals to do the same thing. So Sub-Zero Kameo, he has Cold Shoulder, right? You'll knock your opponent down, you'll get a real punish on them, but you'll only hit the main character and you'll still take 1 hit from Kia's blades. You can see right here. So that is an option you have. Also, Sub-Zero doesn't get shut down if you do this. So if you do have a Kameo reversal option, and specifically it has to have invulnerability when performed as a reversal, not just as a getup. Like Cyrax, for example, his net is only invulnerable as a getup, not as a reversal. So specifically if it has the reversal properties of invulnerability, that's when you can use that. So that's just one final option you have against this move. Let's also talk about her other projectile, which is her forward assist. And it's one of the fastest projectiles in the game. Has 23 frames of startup, so that's a bit on the longer end, but it only takes 18 frames to get across the entire screen, which ties it for fastest projectile with Sector's straight missile. So this is a very fast projectile that is very, very hard to react to, right? It's bordering right on that territory of some people can react to it, other people definitely can't, and obviously an online latency is going to play a big part in this. Now if you block this, bad idea. You're just giving your opponent plus frames if you're at full screen, and if they jail into it, it's only -2. Your opponent isn't nearly minus enough to make it so they can't do anything. Your opponent can still go for micro ducks if you try to do a high, and they can punish you that way. Your opponent can jab check you back if you also go for a high. They can also block your jab check and then punish you with their own jab check. So after this move, you need to know that your opponent isn't just open to getting hit by anything. You can take your turn back, but this is more of a fundamental thing to MK rather than this being something specific to Sareena. There are tons of moves in this game that are only like -2 or -3, and there's a whole mind game after that for both players. So that is something to note about it. But otherwise, just in the neutral, again, treating your opponent like they're a full-blown zoner is a solid option to not get hit by this and not get caught out by it. You have to be prepared for these full-screen projectiles, especially something really, really fast. And obviously, again, you're not going to really react to this. You just have to preemptively duck and take your time getting in, unless you have a teleport or, in Quan Chi's case, he has something like Skydrop. But even then, those are very risky options, because if you teleport, like I said, if your opponent did Kia's blades, they can catch you before your teleport goes off, or they'll catch you on the way back, and in some scenarios, your opponent will be able to get up and get a full combo on you that way, which is why it's much safer just to simply get in slowly. The next move that I want to talk about when it comes to Sareena is her up assist, and it's called Demonic Dance, and this is her get up reversal and her on block reversal. So this is a really strong get up option for your opponent. It's very fast, only at 20 frames, completely invulnerable as a wake up option, completely invulnerable if someone is blocking and there's a gap in your strings, as you can see right here. It's essentially a quote-unquote free armor move for them. Granted, they are spending a bar of Kameo for it. And when it comes to this move as a reversal or a wake-up option, there's basically no counter to that, right? You have to treat it as if, you know, it's your opponent doing an armored move. Now, if you make the sickest read in the universe, you can do something like this to armor through it, but that's completely random and I don't recommend doing that. Now, the main way that you see this move is that people are going to do it on block to jail into it. And this is completely safe at -3. So much like the forward assist where people are going to be jailing into it and it's only, you know, it's completely safe at like -2. This move is -3, so it's also completely safe. But again, this isn't a 100% counter deal like the Kia's blades I was showing off earlier, right? Where you can duck after the first hit. This is one of those things where it's more of a fundamental thing where, yes, even though they're -3, that's still safe enough to where your opponent can do something like a micro duck if you go for a high, or they can jab check you if you go for a high, and they can also duck a throw. They still have options out of it. You know, they could jump, they could backdash, but you have options as well. So just know that this is safe, but I still see a lot of people respecting this completely. I actually think people think this move is plus. It's not plus. It's just -3, which is still really good, by the way. -3 at any time is super strong, but it is definitely one of those moves where it's more of a pain than something like this. This has some concrete counterplay. This does not have concrete counterplay. You are relying on your own skills as a player after they do this move. And now for the final 2 moves that Sareena gives to the opponent, which are her best moves and her best tools, are the Glyphs. Her neutral assist, and these are both ambushes by the way, so your opponent is going to set these up mid-combo. But the orange glyph, it's on you and it drains 1 whole bar of meter, and obviously that means if someone lands a hit on you, you're not going to be able to do a breaker, so there's a lot of pressure on you to not get hit. And if you try to get out using armor, right, your opponent can just block and now you've lost even more meter. So there's a lot of pressure on you there. And the other glyph is her down assist, and it's this green one. It's on the opponent, and this will actually give them a lot of meter, and people are actually able to do 4-bar combos with it, which is pretty cool actually. And it also gives them a damage buff. Now again, this is another aspect of Sareena that's super strong, that doesn't have a 100% concrete counterplay, where it's like, oh, you just do this. No. These glyphs are super good. Now, this doesn't mean it's the end of the world though. Now, if someone does get the glyph set up on you, really you want to kind of treat it a little bit like Quan Chi having his armor portal on you, but it's not as scary. So the main thing is, like, if someone does a string, right, and they have an armor gap in there, using a Kameo reversal is a solid option, and using your own armored move is another option that you'll have as well to help you get out of the corner. However, most times the way Sareena is set up is that she's going to be at a distance where you can't hit her and your opponent can kind of defend her the whole time, which obviously makes this even harder to get out of. Now, if someone is doing something relatively dumb, or, you know, I don't mean to say dumb as an insult, but like if someone is doing strings and full strings where they are where they have armorable gaps and you've got a really good armor move, like, you know, Sub-Zero, he can do slide, you can slide through, hit Sareena and the main character and get out of the glyph, right? Some characters have really bad armor moves though. So again, it's kind of dependent on your character as to how easy it is to get out of this. But one good thing to note is that because Sareena is on the screen, they can't use her to get plus frames or make themselves safe. They are committing to their own strings. Now, the best thing you really can do against the glyphs, other than, you know, trying to armor out or something, is just waiting for your opponent to do their string and following up with your own. A lot of people, they get put into the glyph and they start panicking immediately. But if someone's doing full strings or they're doing strings where they're minus, and obviously they can't use Sareena to make themselves, you know, -3 or -2 because she's on the screen, that's your opportunity to get out. You just have to go into a string, or if you're using a Kameo like Motaro, or you have your own teleport, you know, just teleport yourself out when it becomes your turn. So you don't have to respect this a whole lot, but it is a very scary thing to deal with because you get hit once, they mix you one time, you cannot break, you have to eat a full combo. Now again, depending on the character, it might be a super strong combo or it might be a combo that honestly isn't that big of a deal. Now, one other thing I want to point out is that the green glyph, they specifically made it so Sareena is actually put in front of the opponent, which is a lot easier to deal with because, in a lot of situations, you're just going to be able to hit her out of it, which is very, very easy compared to the orange glyph where she's going to be way behind the opponent and you're going to have to shut it down a whole other way. But that's kind of it for the glyphs. So probably not the greatest advice against them, but again, it's less of a you do this against Sareena and you win, right? It's more of a fundamental thing of how is your opponent going to use this scenario to their advantage? Are they going to set it up in such a way where they're in between you and Sareena so you can't hit her? And are they going to be staggering strings, putting some throws in there? So you're just going to mainly have to rely on your own skills in this situation of micro ducking someone's highs or just waiting for them to do something dumb or like overcommit, and then you go for your punish and you just try to get out of there as fast as possible. Now finally, let's talk about why I think Sub-Zero is a very strong cameo to use against someone that's using Sareena, and also Motaro, which I'll talk about as well. So Sub-Zero, obviously he's the easier one to use. He also gives you some health, gives you 50. He has ice armor, which obviously completely negates her projectiles, both of them. It completely destroys them, so it's not like she gets 4 hits from here. And this can actually be very, very beneficial because you can just dash into them and your opponent is stuck in the summon animation. So you can just dash up and get a guaranteed punish from nearly anywhere on the screen. Now if you're at full screen, you're not going to really be able to, it's going to be a lot harder. But yeah, ice armor negates her zoning options. Now there's also the options of using Cold Shoulder as its own armored move in between something like a Sareena flip, right? Or someone, doing a string with a gap in there. And if you use it that way, it's completely fine. However, I feel like I need to point this out. If your reversal gets blocked, it's minus like it's actually an armored move, as you can see right here, minus 20. So it's actually not safe when you use it as a reversal if someone blocks. But if you use it in specific points where like, oh, they're definitely gonna, they're committing to a full string, it's completely fine. But don't live and die by this. The best option you do have is to 2-in-1 it with his ice armor and try to go for some pressure setups where with certain characters you can sandwich people and other characters, you'll just be able to kind of walk people down a bit and then go into another mix or a favorable situation. Now Sub-Zero also has the ice parry, which he can throw you at your opponent, and this is a very plus move, but it does not go full screen, so you have to be around mid screen, and it's again super plus. It's going to be your turn afterwards. So if someone is just trying to play keep out with Sareena with her projectiles, but again, this is one of the more annoying aspects to her that a lot of people have trouble with. Then you can just ice armor, and then for the other half of Kameo, when someone goes and does a Sareena move, you can just real quick after you have the ice armor applied and she's doing this, ice armor, throw you, it's your turn. And on top of all of that, he has his freeze, which will basically help every character, get extended combos in the same way that Sareena can extend combos with her back assist. So the freeze is just generally all around good. It's also a very good anti-air because it actually has a pretty big hitbox around it, and vertically as well. Now next we have is Motaro. He's another pretty solid option against Sareena, but he does take away 50 health. However, he does give you a lot of good stuff. So first we have his projectile deflect, his back assist. This obviously is going to help you against something like this. Now the downside to this is that this does remove the properties that the typical Kia's blades give, which is there's a combo extend. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get a combo extend from this, unlike the actual thing, unless you're playing like Quan Chi, where you can punish and then do a bone cage and whatever. And basically you can on reaction do this to something like Sareena's back assist and her forward assist as well. If you're across the screen, if you're obviously closer, it's a little bit more difficult. And in a real match, it's not like me hitting the play button on this recording, right? You have to react to it. But again, it's not too difficult to real quick just put that out there and punish your opponent for trying to do that. You also have your teleports. You're not really going to use the teleports to get around the zoning. The main use of Motaro's teleport against Sareena is to actually get you out of glyph setups in the corner. You know, your opponent presses some buttons and then you can teleport yourself out. When it becomes your turn, hopefully it'll become your turn and you're able to do that. And it is an ambush, so you can do this at any point during any string. So, you know, the longer the string, the better, because this way he can have more time to actually come in and teleport you out. And also he has the different warps that you can do. You can do far, very far, or close. You know, you do Kameo then left, that's close. Kameo and up is very far. Kameo and forward is far. So that's why Motaro having the teleport is actually super good against Sareena, because most people are going to want to get you in the corner, but you can just get yourself out of there. And this is also pretty good for characters that already have a teleport, because most main roster characters that have a teleport, you know, they put you right next to the opponent, whereas here you get the choice to go super far away and not get punished. And on top of that, you know, you can set up something like tail turret if you have a teleport. You can sandwich people between the turret and yourself, and this is very, very plus. So you can go ahead and mix people up that way. He also has the low tail shot, which is also super plus on block. So if you're playing a character with a lot of overheads, you can put that in there and get even more plus frames. But obviously the low tail shot is the same startup as Sareena's Kia's blades. So you want to make sure you're using a move with a lot of cancel advantage with that. But overall, Motaro is just really good. And he's honestly a better anti-zone Kameo than Sub-Zero in my opinion. He's just harder to use. But yeah, that's my recommendations if you want to try to use a Kameo counter pick against Sareena. And that's going to do it for this video. Obviously some things were a little more solid than others, and other things are more just like play better, or you know, I know that's how it sounds, but it's kind of the truth of some of those things, like the glyphs. You can't really, there's no solid get out of jail free card with that. You do have to outplay your opponent after they set that up. I do apologize for that. And that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully I can do some more anti-Kameo guides. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.